day and good afternoon and welcome to Numeracy and Mathematics 2. I'm your tutor for Numeracy and Mathematics 2 and I will be the one to mark your examination. So now I want to welcome you all to Numeracy and Mathematics 2. I will do the examination and it will focus on all three examinations for 2019. And I'm not going to go into details of what the examination will be and what it will constitute, but I will focus more on the important aspects that you need to take care of, to think about in terms of the examination. Please regard this as just a guide to help you when you are preparing to sit for your examination, and it is not it must be used in consultation with your examination booklet or the study guides and the textbooks that you have received. You need to also take care of that and look at that and see how you can help, how this presentation can help you actually to prepare for yourself for the examination. Now, so you are welcome, and this is Numeracy and Mathematics 2. So I want to give you a quick subject overview. The first thing we're going to talk about is the calculation using expanded and standard notation, arranging values in increasing and descending order. And then we're also going to talk about filling missing values and complete patterns, place value, digit value, and we're also going to talk about rounding off of places and so on. We're also going to talk about using information from graphs and in tables and pies to answer questions, calculation using your standard notation, arranging values from decreasing and all these things of rounding up and completing missing values in an equation and so on. Now we're also going to talk about calculating fractions, word problems, drawing pies and fractions, multiplication, addition and subtraction and division of decimal numbers, and also the conversion of fraction and decimal number as well as percentages. So those are the issues that we are going to talk about. We're also going to talk a bit about budgeting from home. For example, if you're at home and you need to draw up a budget or a planning for a month, how you're going to spend your money, and also writing numbers and solving word problem. Adding values that do not have similar units or calculating time during clocks and drawing clocks, writing in analogs. And also going to talk about properties of shapes and drawing of shapes, calculations of volumes, circumference, and angles and shapes. Now let's look at the first diagram or table that we have here. Here we have a table that is talking about the number of athletes and the number of time, or the time that they took to complete a marathon. This marathon is 21.5 kilometers, and we have the student, the day, or the athletes, the days that they have taken to practice. In the first column, we have the names of the student, of the athlete, and then in the second one we have days taken, and then the time they took to complete the marathon. So what they want to do is that you need to look at this graph and come up with questions to your student or to your learners. Or they will ask you questions and then you have to answer. But you need to get the information from the graph. That is very, very important. So let's look at the first question. The first question is saying, draw a bar graph from the information in the table. So you need to use that information that is in the table and you draw a bar graph. So now you have to look at what is in the graph. Here we have athletes, you have time taken, and then you have time taken to practice, and then time taken to complete the marathon. So you need to have three variables in your graph. So let's look at the second question before we look at the answers. Which athlete practiced the least but ran the fastest? Because in the rows you will see that some of the athletes were practicing for 30 days, some are 40 days, some are 50 days, but then you have to look at how much time did they took to complete the marathon in the last column. So you need to do the comparison there so that you can see some people, they practice longer, but they complete the marathon very, very long. They took a long time to complete the marathon. Some did not even practice a lot of days, but they managed to complete the marathon faster. So that is what the graph is trying to talk about. And then it also talk about which athlete practiced the most and ran the slowest. What is the fastest time of the marathon in the table? What is the average minutes per kilometers for Lolani? Now, let's look at the graph. This is how you draw the graph. So when you look at this graph, you need to look at the graph and see what are the values of the students. The time they taken there to practice is in blue, and then the time they take to complete the marathon is in yellow or brownish kind of color. That is the time that they have taken for them to complete the graph, or the marathon. So now you can also use this graph actually to answer all the questions that they were asking just by looking at the graph. For example, if they say, which student practiced the least? Then when you look at the graph, you can see that there is a person with the name Lucia who practiced only, when you look at the blue graph, it's very short. She practiced the least, but when you can see at the time that she took to complete the marathon, it was very, very fast. She took a very, very long time to complete the marathon. Now, how did we get this minute or the hours? When you look at the time they take to complete the marathon, you will see that it is in hours, 2 hours, 30 minutes, 2 hour, 10 minutes, 2 hour, 5 minutes. What you need to do is that you need to convert that into minutes so that you can be able to plot it on the graph. It's very difficult for you to plot 2 hour, 30 minutes on a graph. But if you convert it to minutes, it will become 90 minutes. And then you have a 90 minutes graph that you can set. For 2 hour, 10 minutes, it will be like 70 minutes. And that is how you plot your graph. Now going back to the answers. So the answer, the first one is Lucia, and then Lois is the second answer. When they are asking about the time taken, it's 2 hours, but it is, you can convert it also to minutes, so your answer can be 2 hours, or you can say 120 minutes. The fourth answer is 150 minutes, or per 21.5 kilometers. That is the average time that they took. And then the last one was 6.97 minutes per kilometer, or 7 if you round it off. You can say 7 minutes per kilometer. Now let's look at the place and values and digit value, descending and ascending order. So say for example they ask you to arrange the following number in ascending order. Now this number is 4 to the power 3, 5 to the power 2, 1 to the power 5, 2 to the power 6, 3 to the power 4. Now, you will not know what is the value of 4 to the power 3 just by looking at it. So what we are trying to propose is that first of all, you need to write the 3 numbers, or all the 5 numbers out. So for example, the first one is 4 over 3, 4 to the power 3, that means it's 4 times 4 times 4, that is 64. Then you have your answer there. The second one is 5 over 2, or 5 to the power 2, that gives you 5 times 5, which is 25. And then 5 to the power 5, 1 to the power 5 is 1, 2 to the power 6 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 6 times, and that gives you 64. 3 to the power 4 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times, and that is equal to 81. Now if you have those values, 64, 25, 1, 64, and 81, then you can be able to arrange them in ascending order, meaning that from the smallest one to the highest one, and then you can get your answer. Now, say for example they say convert 33,602 to an expanded notation. That is how you do it. You actually expand each value. You start with 3, which stands for a 10,000th place, so it becomes 3 times 10,000. Plus the second 3 is stand for the 1,000, that is 3 times 1,000, plus the 6 stand for 100, that is 6 times 100, plus 0 stand at the place of 10, that is 0 times 10, and then 2 at the place of 1, that is 2 times 1. So that is your answer. You have expanded the whole 33,602. Now sometimes they say round off to the nearest number that is indicated. They give you the number to which you must round off. Say, for example, they have 88,000 to the nearest 100. So 888 to the nearest 100, it will become 900, because that is the nearest 100. If this number was, for example, 842, then the nearest 100 could be 800, not 900. So you look at the number that is closer, whether it's closer towards 900 or it's closer towards 800, and that is the value that you give. Say, for example, the next one is saying 67,675 to the nearest 10,000. So here they are looking for the 10,000. So where you look at the place of the 10,000, and that you notice that there is a 7. But before that, there is a 6. So 67 actually. Now, when you round it off to the nearest 1,000, it becomes 70,000. And that is your final answer. So sometimes they say write the digit value of the following underlying numbers. They give you a sum that is saying 5,474, but then they underline 7. Now you need to look at 7. Where is 7? Is it at the 1th, or is it at the 10th, or the 100th, or the 1000th, or the 10,000? So when you look at that one, 7 is in the place of the 10th. So your answer is 10. The next one is 53,683, and then they underline, for example, 9. Now 9 is at the place of 100, so your answer will be 100. Now I want you to see the difference between when they ask a digit value and also when they ask a place value. There is a difference between the two. Say, for example, they say write the place value of the number below. The number is 475. Now in the number 475, the digit 5 is at 1's place when you look at that number. The digit 7 is at the place of is at the 10th place, and 4 is at the 100th place. So your place value of 5 is 5. The place value of 7 is 7 times 10 because 7 is at the place of 10th place. And the place value for 4 is 400 because 4 times 100 is 400. So you will see that there is a difference when you are answering the place value and when you're answering a digit value. Very, very important to make that distinction, because most of the time students are mixing these two, especially place values and digit value, in terms of their answering. And this table I have provided that you can look at it and study it and know what are the place values, for example, for the ones, for all the thousands, for the millions and billions and trillions, and you see how you have to write your place values and digit values. Very important that you study this graph or this table. It's just for illustration purposes. Now sometimes they say draw a pi from a fraction, or they say draw a fraction from a pi, and you have to draw the pi. Say, for example, they give you a pi 3/5. So what you need to do is that you need to know that if you have a pi and they give you 5 parts, so you have to divide this pi in 5 equal parts. Please make sure that your parts are equal. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the 5 parts of your pi. Now they say you must draw, the value is 3/5. So you have 5 parts, which is represented by this denominator, and then you have to color them. So you color, for example, that one, that means now is 1. If you color this one, that means it's 2/5. If you just cover that one, that means it's 1/5. This is 2/5. But they are saying they want 3/5, so you need to color 3 areas. And that is your 3/5. And that is how your answer look like in your graph. And that is how you draw them. So any graph that they give you, you just have to know how to draw it. You just have to know that if you look at the denominator, if the denominator is 8, divide the circle in 8 parts. And then if the top number is maybe 2, just color those 2. And that is your answer. Now, let's look at the word problem that we are having here. Maria bought 1 kilogram of sugar from a shop. She uses 3/4 of the sugar for herself, and then the rest she gave to Johanna. Now they are saying, what fraction did she give to Johanna? We want to find out what is the fraction that she has given away to the other one, if she uses 3/4. So what we need to do is we need to subtract 1 kilogram minus 3/4. So how do we do that? We have to convert 1 to a fraction with the same denominator, and the denominator in this case is 4. So that means we say 1 times 4, 1 times 4, that is now actually 4/4, minus 3/4, and that is equal to 1/4. So that means that 1/4 of the sugar is given to Johanna, and she uses 1/3 of the sugar. Now let's look at another one. For example, they say you must multiply these fractions, which is 5/6 times 3/3.5. So what you need to do is you need to convert the mixed number, which is 3/1/2, to an improper fraction. So what you do is you say 5/6 times 7/3. How did you get 7/3? You say 2 times 3 plus 1. It gives you 7. And that is an improper fraction. So from there, you're going to multiply the top numbers together, which is 5 times 7, and the denominator also of 6 times 3. You multiply them, and then you get 5 times 7 gives you 35, and 6 times 3 gives you 18. Now you have a mixed number fraction. Now you can also go further and simplify it by saying 18 goes into 35. It goes one time, and that is your whole number. And what is left is 17. You write it on top, and 18 is the denominator, and it stays as is. Now let's look at calculating decimal numbers. Say, for example, we have 204 plus 300,4 minus 7,5 times 60. Now the very first thing that you need to do is you want to get rid of the fraction. So you multiply 0.7 times 60. When you multiply those two, then you get 42. Now when you get 42, then you try to solve your addition. In other words, you add 204 plus 300,4, it gives you 504 minus 42. So your 42 still continue, and you minus 42, and then when you subtract, you get 462.4. And that will be your final answer. Now let's look at this one. Sometimes they give you multiply 3.04 times 6.1. So what do? You need to multiply 1 times 4, 1 times 0, 1 times 3, and you write all those ones out, and you'll see your answer will be 3,04. And then you have to multiply your 6 times 4, which gives you 40. And then you go on, and you continue like that until you come to the final answer, which is now when you take 3,04 multiplied by 6, you will get 18.240. Now when you add those ones, you get your final answer, which is 18.544, which is your final answer. Now sometimes also they ask you to convert common fractions into decimals. Now 5/7, for example, is equal to 0.71. How did you get that? Very simple. You multiply, or you divide 5 divided by 7 is 0. And then what is left there, you add a 0, and then you say 7 divided by 50, and then you continue like that, and that is 71. And that is how you get your number. Sometimes they also ask you to convert fraction to percentages. Now, if you have a fraction, for example, 5/4, and that you have to convert it to a percentage, it's very simple. All what you need to do is you look at the denominator, and you look at the number. You look for a number that will give you, which you will multiply that denominator to get 100. Now, if you multiply that number with your denominator, you also multiply the same number with your numerator. And that means the number is 20. So if you multiply 5 times 20, you also have to multiply 4 by 20. So 4 times 20 gives you 80, 5 times 20 gives you 100. So you have a fraction that say is 80/100. Now if you divide or you simplify, then you will find out that is an 80% fraction, percentage. And that is your final answer, because they are asking you to convert it to percentages. Now sometimes they say converting unit to other values. So they are asking you, you have different values. For example, you have 5,000 meters. You have to convert it to, or let's start with the first one in blue. It's 200 kilogram. You have to convert it to grams, and you have to convert it to tons. Now, one of the key issues that you need to know here is that you need to know what is the difference between kilograms and grams, and what is the difference between grams and tons. With what number are you multiplying 200 gram to get kilogram to get to grams? So we know that there is 1,000 gram in 1 kilogram. So the number that you're going to multiply 200 kilogram with is 1,000. That gives you 200,000 gram. But then when you have to take those grams to tons, you have to divide. Now, first you have to ask yourself how many grams are in tons, and that is the same principle that you are going to apply as the first one, and then you divide that 200,000 grams with the number that you found out. Now, say for example, we take meters now. You have 500 meters, and you have to convert it to kilometers. It's the same principle that apply. You first have to find out how many meters is in 1,000 is in 1 kilometer, and that is 1,000 meters. So you have to divide, because now remember you are moving from a small one to a big one. You have to divide that 5,000 by 1,000 and give you 5 kilometers. The same principle apply when you are converting it to centimeter, because you know that in 1 kilometer there is 100,000 centimeters. So what you do is you take 5 kilometers, you multiply by 100,000 centimeter, and you get your answer. Same with liters, also 200 liters, then you have to convert it to milliliters. When you convert it to milliliters, you know that the difference there is 1,000. There is 1,000 milliliters in 200 liters. So you have to multiply by 1,000, because you are moving from a big one to a small one. And now also you have to know that milliliters and cubic centimeters are similar, so the answer remains the same as 200. Now, budgeting. Let's look at budgeting. For example, you are asked to calculate the value of profit and loss and so on. So sometimes they give you this table and they say you must complete the table. Now, in the cost price is 900, for example. The selling price, they are asking for the selling price. And the profit that the person have made is 250. That means that the person have bought the item for 900, but he make a profit of 250. Now they are asking you, what is the selling price? What did he sell the thing for? So if you have to look at that, it's very simple when you do your calculation. You know that the cost price is 900. So it costs the person 900, but the person sell the item and he make a profit of 250. So all what you do is you add this together and you find out that the person have sold actually the item at 1150, and that is the price that he sell the item for. This is the selling price. So that is how you calculate the selling price for that one. The next one is they don't give you the cost price, but they tell you this is a selling price, but he make a loss. In other words, he sell the item for 1,500, but he make a loss of 250. So what do you do? Actually, what you need to do, you can just put this 250 here, and then you minus. So if you subtract there, you'll get 0, you'll get 5, and you get, this is 4, you get 2 and 1. So that means that he actually, the cost price of the item was 1,250. That is what he bought the item for. But he didn't sell it for a profit, he sold it for a loss of 250. This is the amount of money that he lost because he sold it actually cheaper than what he bought the item for. This can be in cases where, for example, you have bought an item and then you use the item for a while and now you want to sell it. You cannot sell it at a higher price because you have used the item for some times and so on. So this is very critical that you need to understand this. The last one is also saying that the cost price is 420. That is what he bought the item for. And then the selling price is 390. He sold the item for 390. Now they are asking, what is the loss? What is it that he lost? When you look at that, you just have to subtract these two from one another. When you subtract 420, you have 420 and you minus it from 390. So you can get your answer. So you say that is a 0. If you subtract here, you get 3 because you take now 1 from there to that side. And that is 12 minus 9 is 3. And this is 3. It becomes 3 now, so it's 0. So the cost price was actually what he, not the cost price, he lost a $30 because he sold it far cheaper than for what he have bought the item for. Now let's look at the following words. Now they say write the following in words. They have 17,950. Please, when you are writing this words equation, please try to write the whole sentence out. 17,950. Sometimes these numbers become complicated, especially when there are zeros in between and so on. But it's very important that you have to write the whole words out. Sometimes they give you the words, now you have to write the numbers, which is, so there is one thing that is missing in this one, and that is Namibian dollar. So please make sure that when you are writing 17,950, don't forget the Namibian dollar, because these are Namibian dollar. You lose a mark if you don't put the Namibian dollar there. Now, the second one is 40003. This is where people are, or students are struggling with, and I put this one deliberately here so that you can understand what we are saying here. When they say write that one in words, it's actually 40,003. 40,003. That is what you write. You don't have to write 40,003. No, you just write 40,003. I noticed this one that students are really struggling with. At the following values, for example, you have 2 weeks, 5 days, and 48 hours. Now they are saying they want you to write this in days. Your total must be in days. So what is 2 weeks? 2 weeks is actually, you have to convert the 2 weeks to days. You have already the 5 days. You have already the 48 hours. You have to convert it also to days. It's best if you have the following sentence that are all in days. So 2 weeks is actually 14 days plus 5 days plus 48 hours is actually 2 days. So when you take 14 plus 5 plus 2, you get 21 days. And that is your final answer. Now, sometimes they say you must draw a clock with the following times. Now, this is very, very, very important, but students have to know how to draw the clock. So when you have to draw a clock, for example, the first clock there is 18 hours. You have to draw your circle, and the first thing that you need to do, you need to make a mark at the 12, make a mark at the 6. These 2 marks are very important. And then make 2 marks here. This is the best way how to draw a clock. So you have now 4 marks. This one will stand for 12, for 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Now, between these 2, you have to just make 2. And make sure that the space between them are equal. You just make another 2. Make sure that the space between them are equal. Another 2. You just make sure that those spaces are equal. And another 2. Now you have your center here, because they are saying you must draw a clock. So this is your center of your clock. Now they are saying the time is 18 hours. So your long clock, or let's start with the short one. The short one should show towards 18. Which is now 6 here. And your long one must show towards 12 o'clock. And that is your time for 18 hours. Now, sometimes they ask you, for example, like the second one. The second one is asking for 7 o'clock. So if you have to draw, you draw your clock, as I say, and you make your 4 crosses there, or ticks. In between them, you have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then you have your center here. Now, the very first thing that you need to draw is 7. Where is 7? You know that this is 12. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our 7 o'clock is somewhere here. But it is exactly at 7. So you need to draw your short one towards 7. If it's exactly at 7, you need to be straight over 7. But please note, if this was maybe 15 minutes past 7, it will not be exactly at 7. It will be something like this, because it's a bit out of 7. So it will be somewhere there, because the other clock will be there or showing that side. So this is where many students lose marks, because you need to know what is the right time. Is it now 15 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? If it's at 30 past 7, the clock will be straight in the middle between these two here. So disregard the green ones now. We are answering the 7 o'clock one. So your 7 o'clock, it will be straight over 12 here. And that is what you draw. And that is what you have to teach your learners, how to draw these things. It's very, very, very important. Let's look at the next one, which is also a bit complex. So you draw your circle. Make sure that you draw these circles with instrument. Me, at the moment now, I don't have the instrument. You need to draw it with an instrument. So you have your 2 times there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and you have your middle points here. Now, please note that this is 8:15. We all know that this is 8 o'clock. But here, the long stick will be towards 8:15. But the short stick, we know that this is 8 o'clock. It will not be straight over 8. It will be a little bit away from 8, because it's no more exactly 8 o'clock. It's a bit out. It's 8:15. And that is how you draw it. Okay, the rest you can draw, and it's 12 o'clock and so on. Now, let's look at this one. A marathon runner completes a lap of a marathon. Lap A is 10 kilometers. He completed it in 2 hours, 22 minutes. And lap B is 10 kilometers also, but he completed lap B in 3 hours, 45 minutes. Find the total time. So what they are saying here, actually, you just have to add 2 hours, 22 minutes, and you add it to 3 hours, 45 minutes. So this is how you add it. You have your 2 hours, 22 plus 3:45. Then you have 5 hours, 67 minutes. Now, we all know that 3 hours, 67 minutes is a bit over an hour. It's because an hour is actually 60 minutes. So there are 7 minutes more. So we can convert that whole hour into an hour, and we add it to 5. And then what the minutes that are left, we give it 7 minutes. And that becomes 6 hours, 7 minutes. Write this time in words, for example. 23:30 or 00H00, which is 12 o'clock. So 23:30 will become 11:30 post midnight. Now, after midnight. This one will be post midnight now. The other one is 12 o'clock midnight. The other one is 9:15, which is 9:15 post midnight. So you need to know the AM and the PM. Very, very important. You use the AM after midnight. That means after 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. And the other one, you use it before 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. Now, we have the issue of calculating volumes and shapes and so on. Let's say calculate the area of a rectangle with a length of 28 millimeters and a width of 2 centimeters. Now, you need to first know what is the formula for calculating the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle, you calculate it by length times breadth. Now, you have 28 millimeters times 2 centimeters. So you need to convert the centimeters first to millimeters, and that 2 centimeters become 20 millimeters. And that is, you multiply 20 times 20 times 28, and that becomes 560 millimeters square. That is your area. So if, for example, they say calculate the circumference of a circle with a radius 4. First, you need to know what is the formula for circumference. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. And that is equal to 2 times pi times 4 centimeters, because they give you the centimeters already. So you can answer, your answer will be 25.1 centimeters. Now, sometimes they also ask you to draw the following lines. So there is a line, for example, they say perpendicular line or intercepting line. Now, the first one here is your answer for a perpendicular line. It's a line that crosses each other at an angle of 90 degrees. Now, intercepting line is lines that crosses each other at any angle except 90 degrees. So those are intercepting lines. Now, areas or perimeters, very straightforward. Say, for example, they say calculate the perimeter of a rectangle with the width 10 centimeter and the length 11 centimeter. Your formula is P is equal to 2, and you open your brackets, length times width. So you replace the value, your length you are given there is 10 centimeter, and your width is 10 centimeter and your length is 11. So you add the two together, and then you have 22 centimeter times 2, and that gives you 44 centimeters. The other one is saying calculate the circumference of a circle with a radius of 24 millimeters. So the circumference for a circle, the formula is pi 2 pi. So in other words, you multiply your 2 pi r. Your radius is 12 millimeters. So you replace, in the place of r, you put your 12 millimeters, and then it becomes 75.4 millimeters. Now, quadrilaterals, very, very important that you need to know all your quadrilateral, because here I only put 2. Sometimes they ask you to draw this quadrilateral, and there are many. Sometimes they ask you to name them. Sometimes they ask you even to list the properties of each one. So you need to know the properties of all the quadrilateral and see whether you can be able to answer all these questions. And you need to know what is a parallelogram, what is a rectangle, what is a square, how do you draw it, especially when you have these parallel lines and so on. Now let's look at some quadrilateral that we also have to know. A parallelogram, for example, the properties of a parallelogram is that the opposite sides are equal, parallel to each other, and the opposite angles are equal to each other as well. The trapezium, the pair of opposites are parallel in terms of the trapezium, and that is the property of a trapezium. So it is important to study the property of all the different figures, as I said earlier. Don't just look at these ones and think that those are all, because you know in your study guide there are various quadrilateral that you can look at and that you can study and that you can, know especially the drawing, how to draw it. You have also to know how to write the properties, all their properties, and list them all, and so on. Now, please note that this presentation only serves as a guide, and in no way should the student restrict their exam preparation only to the given examples. Very, very, very important. The presentation that I have given here is just as a guide, but you need to look more and look at other examples that you can get a lot of examples, especially from your textbooks, from your study guide, and also from the internet, from other books, and also on YouTube. You can see a lot of examples of what is supposed to be when you are looking at the quadrilateral and so on. You need to look at other examples and see how you draw them, especially things like circles and their properties and so on. There are many. There are triangles, there are rectangles, there are squares, and all these things. You need to know their properties. You need to study their properties. And not only the properties, but also how to draw these quadrilaterals. Now, I want to give you, in conclusion, a few tips on what you need to know, especially in preparation for your examination. Start studying early. Is very, very, very important. Give yourself enough time to grasp and study and get the materials into your brain. Practice it and then review it. Don't wait until the examination is around the corner and now you are starting to prepare yourself and see what you can do and so on. You need to study in advance. Get the day that you have to write. For example, you have to write tomorrow. It's very important that you have a restful night before the examination. Don't study during that few hours before the exam, and now you are starting overnight and up to 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock you go to bed, and now you are going to write at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. That is not correct. Your brain needs to rest and to digest the information so that it can be able to present the information when you are writing the examination. Study related topics to other books also, not only in the study guide. You need to study other books as well. You need to read other books as a student. Create study schedules and prioritize your study. Contact your tutor in advance. Ask questions. on issues that you find difficult. It's very important. So, and I can be contacted between 5 and 8, and that is my telephone number, 0812747 800. I thank you.